Okay, we are rolling.
We are back, brother.
Just going to have a chat with you all today about potentially Manny Pacquiao's next fight, which, there's a lot of rumours going around. Is it Floyd Mayweather? Now we've seen come to the forefront a potential Errol Spence fight. Errol Spence looked very eager to call Manny Pacquiao out in the ring after he beat Mikey Garcia at the weekend on ITV4. Let me just get to the Errol Spence-Mikey Garcia fight. To me, Mikey Garcia, it went exactly the way I thought. The only differences were Mikey Garcia went the distance, which is a big plus for Mikey Garcia, by the way. Let's just put that out there. And Mikey Garcia didn't win any early rounds. I thought it was very clearly an Errol Spence fight. And Errol Spence's boxing skills were on show, but that was because of his reach primarily, which again is to do with size. Mikey Garcia did not close the space down at all. And when you don't close the space down on a bigger guy, you are on the end of his punches, and especially that right-handed jab of Errol Spence. And didn't I say, and it proved to be true, Mikey Garcia's footwork is not like Manny Pacquiao's. He's right there in front of you virtually. He moves very well while he's right in front of you, but nonetheless, he's right there in front of you. And an Olympian fighter who's a good body puncher and an accurate puncher will have success doing that. Here's the pluses for Mikey Garcia. What a tough guy. I mean, he came up 2 weight classes and he didn't feel out the waters at welterweight. He fought arguably one of the best at welterweight. On his debut at welterweight, challenged for a world title and went the distance. Kell Brook couldn't go the distance with Errol Spence. So Mikey Garcia goes up in my estimate. Don't knock Mikey Garcia down. This was a phenomenal feat. He was taking body shots, head shots. As I said, he didn't close the space down enough. But he was getting hit left, right, and centre and still there. Right? That is remarkable, right? Very durable guy indeed. We know that possibly if Mikey Garcia is not physically affected, he can go down in weight. And let's face it, who can hurt him in the lower weights if a top welterweight can't? Just think about that. I know some of the smaller guys can catch you off guard because their punches are quicker, but it would take a shot that he doesn't see coming. I mean, he could see Errol Spence's shots coming, so maybe he could tense his body to absorb a lot of that. But still, you have to say, he took his punishment like a true champion. I felt Mikey Garcia bulked up too much, and that took away his speed, which again goes back to Manny Pacquiao's advice. To beat Errol Spence, you need your speed. I think he compromised that speed to try and get a bit of strength and bulking out. And to me, he looked a little bit chubby, right? Manny Pacquiao, when he fought the bigger guys, weighed the same virtually as Manny Pacquiao that fought Oscar De La Hoya and Ricky Hatton. In other words, he doesn't fluctuate too much. Why? Because he relies on his reflexes and his speed, and he knows this. He knows when he fought Margarito, I am not going to go up to light middleweight. I am going to be the same Manny Pacquiao against Margarito weight-wise as I was against Hatton. And that's what we saw. Because the way Pacquiao beats a bigger guy is by being Pacquiao. You can't transform Manny Pacquiao into a middleweight. He's not a middleweight. What he does have is unique skills, speed, balance, footwork, those sort of things. And he knew this. The faster against the bigger guy for Manny, the better. Because unlike Mikey Garcia, and we've seen it in this fight, Manny's power did transfer up a little bit in the heavier weight classes, so he could keep a bigger guy honest. Mikey Garcia just could not keep Errol Spence honest. And the little speed Mikey Garcia did have, Errol Spence slowed him down with bodywork. Now, when is the last time there's talk of a Manny Pacquiao-Errol Spence fight? Now, I'm not calling who wins this fight at this point, although I'll talk a little bit about, how it could go. But when's the last time you saw a guy put a sustained attack on Manny Pacquiao's body? It's very difficult to do because he moves all around the ring. His ring coverage is second to none as an offensive fighter. He's an offensive back foot fighter at times, right? He covers the distance in fights a lot quicker than Mikey Garcia. He hits harder than Mikey Garcia, right? He also matches up with Errol Spence in terms of stance, right? Southpaw v Southpaw, right? Has Manny still got the edge on Errol Spence for speed? Arguably, yes, right? He has. The footwork, Errol Spence, even though Manny Pacquiao is 40, this will be the most baffling footwork and potential hand speed that Errol Spence has ever had to deal with, right? Let's just take that. The downfall may be, I've no doubt Manny Pacquiao in his prime, maybe even 2 years ago, we've seen how he took punishment from Jeff Horn in Australia. He took it well, right? It was Jeff Horn, you've seen him knock out Anthony Mundine, who is very durable even though he's old. Shane Mosley couldn't knock out Anthony Mundine, right? There's Jeff Horn knocking him spark out, right? The punches didn't affect Manny Pacquiao. He is durable. Can he take the punishment Mikey Garcia did and, offer his skills back to Errol Spence? That is the question for Manny Pacquiao at this point. An older guy, they can take less punishment than a younger guy. Younger guys take the punishment better. That's just a physiological fact. As they get older, it's the same for Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. They have become more boxers than actually getting into the grueling attrition aspect of fights. Errol Spence will try and do that. He will try and put some damage on Manny Pacquiao. And at some point, because he is a good fighter, he will be able to sustain certain things. The question is, does Manny Pacquiao still have that strength to absorb what he could absorb from Cotto, from Margarito, from Jeff Horn, etc.? Now, the question also, this is what equals it out a little bit, is Errol Spence really the puncher we thought he was? Because the guys he's been knocking out really are not on Mikey Garcia's level. They're not on Kell Brook's level. They're not on Manny Pacquiao's level. Not even close. And he struggled to stop Kell Brook, really. Let's take, for instance, no guy going up 2 weight classes, and it was proven. The proof is in the pudding. If any guy went up from 2 weight classes below to fight Manny Pacquiao, I think Manny Pacquiao would knock them out, right? Gennady Golovkin fights Kell Brook, who goes up 2 weight classes. Maybe not even 2 weight classes, in fact. Maybe just 1.5 because of this reason. Kell Brook, right, struggles to make a 147 pound. He is really, shall we say, a 150 pounder. So he only went up, really, in theory, a weight class and a bit. And Gennady Golovkin smashed him and stopped him, right? What does that tell you? Maybe Errol Spence is not the mega puncher that he's made out to be. Against lower level, yes. But when you're climbing the mountain against better fighters, it can be, you can hit a guy and think, oh my, I'm winning this fight, but these punches, they're not quite working the way they used to do. That happened even with Floyd Mayweather, who was even dominating fights. But let's face it, when he stepped up, when he fought De La Hoya, it went the distance. When he fought Ricky Hatton, it went at least 10 rounds. And the only reason Ricky Hatton was stopped is because he felt he was behind on the scorecards and started to get reckless. And then he fell onto that check left hook. Other than that, Ricky could have survived, right? Pacquiao went the distance with Mayweather. Canelo went the distance with Mayweather. Mosley went the distance. The higher the level, the harder it is to knock someone out. But Errol Spence is supposed to be the boogeyman. Floyd was always known, yes, Pretty Boy was a good finisher, but he was known as a pure boxer, right? So it really didn't have a knock-on effect on his, shall we say, how he's viewed in the boxing world if he didn't stop a guy, if that makes sense, right? But will Errol Spence get credit for beating Manny Pacquiao at this stage? No, I think Manny Pacquiao gets more credit just for stepping in the ring with Errol Spence. than Errol Spence would get for beating Manny Pacquiao. I mean, when you consider Floyd Mayweather is an absolute legend. But, I mean, he's gone on to fight, let's be honest, some disappointing bouts. When you consider Pacquiao has fought Bradley, Vargas, Matisse, Jeff Horn, and Adrian Broner, all world champions. And then to step in the ring with Errol Spence, win or lose, I mean, you have to hold that guy up and say, wow, what an absolute warrior and the heart of an absolute champion. Can he beat Errol Spence? If he's at anything like his best, yes, he can. Because we have to consider in the fact, in Brisbane, Australia, many people felt he beat Jeff Horn anyway, me included, but he was away from home there, right? And we have to ask this question, did he overlook Jeff Horn a little bit? Did he overlook him? He won't overlook Errol Spence if he fights him. Let me just tell you that. Manny Pacquiao's concentration sometimes does dip, but when you give him a name, he seems to rise to the occasion, right? He's proved that in his last 2 fights a little bit. People say, well, he can't really hurt Errol Spence because he couldn't stop Adrian Broner, but you have to remember, Adrian Broner went into survival mode, right? He covered up after tasting Manny Pacquiao's power, right? Errol Spence may take more shots from Manny Pacquiao because to get shots off, he comes to attack. He doesn't really go into defensive mode. Does that leave him a little bit vulnerable to Pacquiao's hand speed? That is interesting. Would I be advising Manny Pacquiao to take this fight at this point? No, I wouldn't, to be honest with you. I'm disappointed that Errol Spence is wanting to fight Manny Pacquiao. It just looks like a money grab, right? Where is Terence? Why is he not fighting Terence Crawford's and, Keith Thurman's and, even Danny Garcia's, the younger guys, are Sean Porter. You see, Pacquiao is the name. Pacquiao is the brand, right? And listen, Pacquiao does not have to bow to these guys, right? I know if Manny Pacquiao sat down with Floyd Mayweather, right, and asked Floyd, look, Floyd, should I be getting in there right now with Errol Spence? I know what Floyd would say. He'd say, look, Manny, and Floyd would be right. Let's just say it as it is. Floyd would be right. Floyd would say, I could see it now. He'd say, you've had a great career, right? But you're not 30 anymore, Manny. I'm not 30. I remember him saying it on Showtime, right? Listen, don't feed yourself up. You are the money, right? You are the man. You are the name. Use it. Get the best that you can out of it, right? You in your prime could beat these guys, but it's a risk now. And I don't care what anybody's saying now, Floyd Mayweather haters, let's just be honest. Floyd would be right. Let's just say that would be good advice. And I could see that in Floyd's mind, right? If Manny Pacquiao had a talk to him. Floyd would say, you can fight decent opponents and still get good numbers. But to go in there with these Errol Spence, who is, let's face it, Errol Spence is not really even a welterweight. That guy could fight at 154 pounds, right? It could go very well for Manny Pacquiao because his speed, power, hand speed, ring IQ, ring coverage could really affect what Errol Spence does. But if he gets old overnight, it ends up a tough order for Manny Pacquiao. That is a possibility. We're going by a fight-by-fight basis here with Pacquiao. Let's face it, he looks good against Matisse. He looked good in patches against Adrian Broner. He had Jeff Horn rocking all over Australia. But one night, will it all catch up? And if it catches up against a guy like Errol Spence is like a blunt razor. He won't outbox you to the scorecards. He will try and hurt you. And even if you survive 12 rounds, you took punishment doing it. Right? So Floyd would, I've no doubt about it, get in Manny's, looking at Manny Pacquiao and thinking, this would be the right road to go. Maybe fight still some good opposition out there that you could beat. but don't get hurt just for an ego, because I know Pacquiao and Mayweather's egos are different. One is a pure businessman, Floyd Mayweather, and credit to him, he's done what he's done. The other's reputation is as a warrior, but Pacquiao is also a brand too. He does make money. Look at the entourage, they get paid, right? He's got to now, as he's getting older, start to see himself as a brand, because he's fighting champion after champion after champion. They're all younger than him. When is the moment when Manny Pacquiao sits down and says, right, I'm going to be business Pacquiao now. I'm going to be Congress Manny Pacquiao. I'm going to be the politician and do things my way. But you could see that warrior spirit. Just, I want Errol. You could see it in the ring. Oh, it'd be a good fight for the fans and all this. But he needs to listen to the people around him a little bit. As I said, if Pacquiao, there's always one night when an old fighter puts on one last great showing. And me personally, the Pacquiao that beat Bradley the third time beats this Errol Spence, right? But again, that's just a few years ago. If, I don't know, maybe it's possible. Maybe he does beat Errol Spence. I don't know. He's certainly got a chance. Let's face it. It is one that could go either way, no matter how you look at it. And to say that about Pacquiao at age 40 is extraordinary, right? This is no give me victory for Errol Spence by any means. It's a tough fight for Errol Spence, which again, at this point, is remarkable that we're even saying. I mean, was Roy Jones Jr. even remotely competitive against the top guys in the weight classes he was competing in at age 40? No, he wasn't. He was nowhere near. And yet here's Pacquiao. I believe Mayweather could, if he wanted to, be competitive with these guys. If he really put the focus in, I could see Mayweather, nullifying Errol Spence. Again, it could go wrong if those wheels get old overnight, but still, it's remarkable that we think about these guys this way, because it's arguably never happened before with guys this small, right? Not in the modern era anyway. But Errol Spence, I'm disappointed. First, you're going after Mikey Garcia, 135-pounder. Pacquiao is not really a welterweight, let's face it, he never was. And he's 40 years of age. You just don't look to be going for the challenges, you look to be going for the money. But let's face it, taking the challenges and overcoming the challenges makes you even more money long term. Ask Pacquiao that, right? He took big risks in his career, was able to overcome them. Had Pacquiao just fought has-beens in the lower weight classes, he wouldn't be the name he is today. And that is why Errol Spence, let's face it, has not transcended the sport yet the way Pacquiao has. And to be fair, Mayweather doing 5 weight classes and beating a guy like Canelo, who was huge fight night compared to him. Errol Spence has not done anything like this yet. You see, that's what you have to do to transcend the sport. Not just take gimme fights after gimme fights after gimme fights, gimmick fights and all that stuff. Errol Spence is not Mayweather. Mayweather can take these exhibitions. He's a proven legend. But Errol Spence beating Keith Thurman, beating Sean Porter, beating Danny Garcia, believe you me, that would start to get Errol Spence some numbers. Just the way Pacquiao beating Cotto, beating Hatton, beating this guy, that guy, Barrera, Morales. You see where I'm going? This is what solidified Manny Pacquiao as the pay-per-view attraction. Looking spectacular against top guys. Not just knocking over, fighters past their prime or fighters he's heavily favoured to beat. Let's face it, the odds were against Floyd Mayweather when he fought Diego Corrales. On paper, and I know a lot of people look at that fight now and say, well, Corrales just went down and he really couldn't handle Floyd. But you have to remember, the bookmakers had Corrales' favourite that night, right? Floyd could have gone the other way, but he didn't. After that fight, his stock started to rise and rise and rise. Do you know, the odd makers really didn't... It was kind of a close fight with Oscar De La Hoya, and the oddmakers had that close as well. Floyd took it. It was a risk. Because Oscar proved on the night that he still had something left in the tank. And pushed Floyd. But when he got the decision, he got the reward for taking, a fight against one of the premier fighters of his time. Errol Spence has to start doing these things. Otherwise, what can we say? You see, the welterweight division, they all seem to be running from each other for me. Furman is not looking forward to Spence. Spence is not looking forward to Crawford. I don't know what to make of it. For people to then say, well, Pacquiao's not looking to... Pacquiao seems to be the guy that is searching for the top guys, and he's the elder statesman. It's a bit embarrassing. Anyway, Spence may struggle to get to Manny's body if he can move, which is a big plus for Manny. But, of course, if Spence can trap Manny, it's not good seeing an old man take punishment from a guy that huge. But we've seen Pacquiao pull off the unbelievable before. It wouldn't surprise me if he did. Here's another thing. Al Heyman needs to get a new start over. If Pacquiao outscored Errol Spence, would he get the decision on PBC? I doubt it. I think they may give Errol Spence the decision unless Pacquiao absolutely dominates him. Let's face it, did Adrian Broner win more than 2 rounds against Manny Pacquiao? I personally gave Adrian Broner 1. Yet the judges gave Adrian Broner 4. You know what I'm saying? So if it's a 7-5 for Manny Pacquiao, don't be surprised if they swing it Errol Spence's way. But here's the thing, boxing fans are not stupid. It did not convince us that Jeff Horn beat Pacquiao. So if Errol Spence can only just squeeze through a victory against Manny Pacquiao, and arguably he lost it, Errol Spence's stock will not rise. He has to win in style, right? He'd have to win with an exclamation mark. That is an absolute fact in my mind. If that fight is remotely close, Pacquiao will be declared the moral winner worldwide against one of the best welterweights in the world in Errol Spence. It will just solidify Manny Pacquiao's legend even more. Let's face it. That is the way boxing fans see things now. They don't rely on judges like they used to because there's a lot of, shall we say, political jargon in the sport of boxing. Errol Spence needs to stop Manny Pacquiao to even get anything remotely classed as credit. He'll get a big amount of money, but fighting Mikey Garcia and Manny Pacquiao 2 fights in a row, it does look bad. It looks like you're wasting your prime. And let's face it, when you fight opposition that you are easily beating, it softens you up as a fighter. You get softened up and you start deteriorating. You see, in tennis, it's like tennis. You go up to the level of opponents you play. If you fight lower level opponents or play lower level tennis players, eventually you as a top level player will go down to their level. And when you fight somebody high level, you are going to struggle. Recently, let's face it, Pacquiao has fought better opposition than Errol Spence. That is just, you look at the names, it's just true. Errol Spence, that may also be what catches him out when he fights a Sean. Because at least Sean Porter recently has fought a Furman, a Danny Garcia, and his last fight, he got a really tough test. It was close. That toughens you up as a fighter. It can make you a better fighter. But when you've been fighting guys that are ready-made for you and you step up, then there's a question. But that's how I see it. That's just some thoughts. Who would you like to see Manny Pacquiao fight next? I don't want to see him fight Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence needs to look for some younger guys out there. It would just look so much more credible, and it would help his stock in the long term. Pacquiao would get him a check in the short term, but if he lost it, he's finished. If it's a close fight, his stock drops. He has to think about these things. If he loses, he is a laughingstock, right? Just something to ponder on. But this is Champions of Champions Boxing Talk. I'm out, brother.